All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the leadership live session, leadership Q&A live session with my co-host Josh Parnell, and I'm Rob K. I guess we're ready to go, Josh.
We're ready to go. Let's do it.
Awesome. We'll kick this off. So thank you all for putting your questions and topics that you wanted to cover on Facebook. So we'll get started with the first question, which is what to expect as a first-time leader or manager. Josh, what's your take on this?
And right out of the gate. So, what to expect from a first-time leader or manager? The first thing I'll say is don't feel like you have to have all the answers. I think for a lot of folks, we get into leadership in a formal sense, and we feel like we have to just know all the answers to be able to give all the directives. But it's not always about the directives. A lot of times, it's about the direction. We can provide clarity and direction through questions. And so, to me, the first advice I would share is to ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions, connect with your team, connect through authenticity, humility, and vulnerability. Being able to get to know the person and focus on the connection before the content, I think is going to suit you very well.
Awesome. So what I'll add to that is, again, just echoing what some of the stuff Josh said is it's okay to fail, and you will fail as a first-time leader. It's how you embrace it. You build that resiliency, that leadership resiliency, and you move forward. Get a mentor. It's super important to get a mentor, somebody that you look up to as a leader, and just ask for help, ask them for help, ask them for mentorship, and make it a regular thing. Make it a regular. So make sure you have regular sessions with your mentor. And then, like Josh said, get to know your team. So, the first, as a part of the first 90 days, one of the essential things is get to know your team, not only your team on, that you're leading, get to know your peers on the same level, and get to know your leaders. So those are some of the important aspects. We can dive into, in this part much deeper, but we'll come back to it. Um, the next question or next topic is the importance of delegation, Josh.
You
What's
may
your
just get into it.
Yeah, get into it.
Okay. Yeah. So delegation. So I like to call this the roadmap of delegation, because what I do is I pair the 5 steps to effective communication, which is another topic for another day, with the roadmap of delegation. So when we get into delegation, we have to remember that we're delegating responsibilities. We're not delegating tasks. So
Mm,
if we're delegating tasks, we're simply giving someone something on our to-do list instead of just giving them the authority and empowering them the way that a good leader should. And so you're delegating a responsibility to this person, and you are allowing them to champion this process or procedure or whatever it is that you're delegating. You're allowing them to champion this on their own. When I say on their own, you're still there as a support. You're still there as a voice. You're still there as a guide. But imagine this. If you can see my hand, this is the end in mind. And a good leader focuses on the end in mind with their team member that they're delegating something to. Now, the mistake that a lot of leaders make is our focus shifts from the end in mind onto the steps that these individuals are taking in order to get here. And when we start looking at every single step that they're taking, we start nitpicking every single step and saying, I wouldn't do it like that. I think you should do it like this instead. And what we're doing is we're micromanaging. And so to avoid micromanaging, both parties need to be viewing the end in mind and recognize this is the end result. This is the goal we're trying to achieve. Now, I, as a leader, am delegating a responsibility to this person. Their focus shifts from the end in mind to the steps they take in order to get here. And my focus stays here. Again, I'm still here as a voice and as a guide, and I'm meeting with them regularly, as you mentioned, Rob. So whenever they do have questions, of course, I'm always available, but give them the responsibility, delegate that responsibility to them, and allow them to have the option, to your point, Rob, like you said earlier, have the option to make mistakes, have the option to fail. You're not going to let them fall off the cliff. Like you're gonna see them make some quote unquote mistakes,
yeah.
but you're gonna be able to be there along the way with them.
Absolutely. Great point, Josh. So something else, I'll tie this back to the first question as a first-time leader. So one of the mistakes that first-time managers make is a lot of them come in as a subject matter expert, or they think they would be the subject matter expert, and that's how they came into that role, or they're put in that role because of their knowledge, and they tend to hoard all that work themselves. And what you're doing is you're actually disabling your team, and instead of empowering them, you're not building trust with your team. It's super important as a first-time leader to build trust with your team. And in order to do that is through delegation. Like Josh said, you want to empower them, to have that authority to make certain decisions. And all you're doing is you have their back. As a leader, you just have their back. You watch these guys thrive in that environment. We'll get into the safe environment and what that looks like, as Josh alluded to. But again, delegation is super, super important. One thing I hear from new leaders or new managers is, I can do it, I do it better, I can do it better. And what you're really saying is you don't trust your team, and you think you're the only one that can do it on the team. If that's the case, fantastic. Teach them, right? Teach them how to do it your way. If your way is the best way, teach them how to do it your way. But build that trust, or you will lose your team very quickly.
Rob, I got a question for you, because I think a lot of listeners might hear you say that, and while I agree, if I'm a new leader, I'm thinking, okay, well, how do I build trust?
Excellent. That's an excellent question. So building trust is, again, one of the key aspects is the delegation, is handing them work that they might not have the current capability to do it, but you're there to guide them through the work, right? You're actually empowering them, say, hey, I got your back. I'm right here. It's okay to fail, because at the end of the day, you're putting up your hand. You're responsible for your team at the end of the day. No matter what happens, you put your hand up when they fail, you give them credit when they win. That's what a leader does. And the other aspect of that is walking the talk. You want to build trust, you got to walk the talk. Whatever you're going to tell your team you're going to do, you got to do it. And that's how they believe in you. That's how that trust is built. Think about it in terms of any relationship you have outside the workplace. How do you build trust with your spouse? How do you build trust with your kids? How do you build trust with your friends? Same concept applies internally in an organization and outside in the real world.
Awesome.
All right. The next question, Josh, is how to grow in leadership. How do you grow in leadership?
Pour into yourself as much as possible.
That's right.
The greatest investment any of us can make is in ourselves. And I think a good reminder for everyone is that leaders are not born, they're made.
Yes.
Leadership is truly a skill that needs to be practiced and developed. So get yourself into some books, some podcasts, find a coach, find a mentor, like you mentioned earlier, Rob. Invest in yourself. To me, that is the greatest way that we can grow in our leadership.
So, Josh, how important is the self-reflection and the self-awareness in becoming a leader?
I think it's incredibly important. When you're talking about self-awareness, I'm thinking about emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And as a leader, we have to have a level of emotional intelligence that extends beyond ourself. We have to have the self-awareness and the situational awareness. We have to know how to listen when we communicate. We have to know how to listen empathetically. Empathizing with someone it means that we don't necessarily have to experience the same situation as that person, but it does mean that we can imagine their circumstances and accept their feelings without invalidating them. And I think for a lot of leaders, we fail to really listen to someone whenever we're communicating, and they feel invalidated, and they feel like they're not being heard, understood, or acknowledged. And that's, it goes back to the importance of connection and being able to focus on the connection. The connection is going to build that trust and that safety that we talked about, so that you can ultimately provide clarity and direction.
That's right.
But yeah, going back. Yeah. But anyway, but what about you, Rob? What are your thoughts?
So for me, one of the most important things in terms of growing as a leader is I always say you have to be able to lead yourself before you lead other people.
Yes.
Um,
So
you have to be open to feedback. So again, we all live in our own little bubble and we cannot see our blind spots. So just that feedback aspect is very important. And as you talked about, Josh, for me, it was, reading those books, watching certain people lead. The other thing is, one thing I always mention is when you're coming up in your career, you want to pay attention to those managers and leaders, what they're doing wrong, what they're doing right. The people that micromanage, the people that you don't like, you can learn a lot from them. They actually teach you a lot. So when you get that opportunity to now lead and develop yourself into that leader, you get to see what you want to do and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. So don't copy the people that you didn't like. And what ends up happening is people complain about that manager that they didn't like, but when they get into that leadership role, they kind of tend to, mimic what they've done, right? Leadership is not about power. Leadership is about empowering. So if you think that you have that title to rule with an iron fist, don't call yourself a leader. That's, you can call yourself whatever else you want, but you're not a real leader. And to grow in leadership, it takes a lot of time. It takes practice, just like anything else, like I use sport analogies. You're not going to go out the first day and be a leader. It takes so much practice and it takes you getting uncomfortable, putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation. It takes failing. It takes making decisions, making the wrong decisions. There's so much we can talk about in terms of, growth in leadership, but to me, it's a never ending journey and you don't stop learning, right? So Josh, my question to you would be, how do you know if you're on the right track and growing as a leader?
that's a great question. I feel like being able to receive coaching as feedback, like you mentioned, as opposed to criticism, condemnation, and judgment. I think the moment we can shift our paradigm and start viewing the coaching that we're receiving truly as feedback, and we can apply it accordingly, that's one way that we can start knowing and believing that we're growing as a leader. I think another really good way to be able to tell is what does your influence look like around you? Because if you have individuals who you are either formally or informally leading, you're influencing them a certain kind of way. And a question I ask all of my coaching clients is, does your team feel the weight of your title or the influence of your leadership? Because if they feel the influence of your leadership, you're going to have that crew, that team around you. They're going to naturally gravitate and follow the leader. And so to me, I think a great leader is also a great follower. So I don't want to rabbit trail too hard, but I am going to say this. You're influencing in a way where you're still learning from your peers, but you're also leading your peers. And I think that if you can look up and see your influence spread across your office or wherever your workplace is, I think that's a good indicator that you're growing as a leader.
That's right. And make sure your ego never gets in the way.
So good. Stay humble. Stay humble. That's huge.
That's another topic by itself, Josh.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I love this question. The next question is something I think definitely worthwhile talking about. How do you hold your head high even when no one believes in you?
Oh, man, these are good questions. But
Great
part of me
question.
was thinking, should I have these questions beforehand? But now I'm liking that I'm getting them live in person. So
That's how we do it.
ask again. How do you hold your head high?
How do you hold your head high even when no one believes in you?
Okay, that is a great question, and I think the most important thing is that people's opinions should not be the opinion of yourself. People's opinions are not necessarily factual. It really doesn't matter if anyone else believes in you or not. It helps, but it doesn't really mean anything. What means something is if you believe in you. And if you don't believe in you, I'm here to tell you, like, if you're listening, even if we haven't met, I believe in you, and I genuinely do, because I know where I've come from and where I'm at and where I'm still trying to go. And it hasn't been an easy road. It hasn't been it's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of roller coaster, a lot of failure, a lot of mistakes, a lot of learning things the hard way. But one thing that we all have is this belief, good or bad. And my encouragement to you is to challenge your beliefs, challenge your thoughts. Ultimately, our thoughts will dictate our feelings. Our
Yes.
feelings will dictate our actions, and our actions will dictate our results. So if you're not achieving the results you want to achieve, it begins with your thoughts. And so I'm going to tell you, I believe in you. Those are the 4 words I think a lot of people need to hear. I believe in you. If you believe in you, it really doesn't matter what other people think. It's an opinion. They're just noise in the background. So to me, I'm thinking, look, just stay the course. You are feeling these feelings for a reason. You're feeling these levels of can I or can't I? I'm telling you that you can. Just keep on going, keep on going, keep on growing, stay consistent, be intentional, stay focused, believe in yourself, and you look up and a year goes by, 10 years go by, you're gonna see a lot of progress that was made. But I think one mistake that a lot of us make is we overestimate what we can accomplish in a short amount of time, but we underestimate what we can accomplish in a longer amount of time. So don't feel like you're gonna experience change overnight, but stay the course, be consistent, don't quit, and look up a year from now, and you're gonna see a lot of progress that was made because you chose to believe in yourself from day one.
That's right. Yeah, I love that, Josh. That's a great point. It's funny. Somebody actually brought this up a few days ago, or yeah, a few days ago. I was in a meeting, and they said the individual said one of the most important things in life in order to succeed is having somebody that supports you or believes in you.
Mhm.
So I challenged that individual. And I said, the only person you really need to support and believe in you is you.
Mhm.
Because I can guarantee you there's a lot of people that they don't have anybody else that believes or supports in them.
Mhm.
So if that's the case, then they should just throw in the white towel saying, hey, I've got nobody, so I should quit. Right? You never do that. You know, I've been through periods of my life where there was nobody there. Right? There was nobody saying, hey, you know, way to go, Rob, keep going. No, right? And I kept a lot of things to myself, but if you don't end up believing in yourself, nobody else will. And
Sorry, Rob, I want to say this too. I think what's important too is I love what you're sharing. I think that you're absolutely right. It helps to have a cheerleader
yes,
support team, and but we don't always have that, right? Some of us don't have all of that, but
yeah,
we do have is what's in here. And
yeah,
so find what inspires you. Motivation is externally driven, inspiration is internally driven.
yes,
So you've likely discovered your purpose. That's why you're feeling these things to begin with. Keep on going and keep on growing. But even if let's just say, I want to go to this side over here for now and say, even if you don't have somebody in your life, you can find a coach, you can find a mentor.
yes.
Rob is a fantastic leadership coach. There's a lot of leadership coaches out there. There's a lot of people out there who are willing and ready and able to help you learn and grow and develop your leadership skills, but also your leadership mindset. For a lot of us, the biggest obstacle we're ever going to face is in between the years,
Yep.
because you have what it takes, but sometimes we let this get in the way and deter us from the destination that we're trying to go.
What I love about what you said earlier, Josh, and I tell this to my clients all the time. And again, this is where our values kind of line up. One of the first things I tell them is, because once I get to know them, obviously, and they're committed to what they want to do, is I believe in you. You got this.
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm right beside you every step of the way.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not there physically, know that I'm right beside you,
Love that.
right? And it's tough. We live in a tough time where, you know, we went through COVID, everyone was isolated, and again, there was a lot of people that were isolated by themselves, including myself, where I didn't have anybody around me. And there was a lot of people that I know are in that state. So it, like you said, it's fantastic if you've got at least one person that supports you, but don't wait for anybody to believe in you before you believe in yourself.
So good. And can I share one more thing, Rob?
Yes, sir.
So I like how you're sharing the way that you begin your coaching sessions. You know, you're when you start working with someone, you first and foremost let them know, hey, I believe in you. When I start my sessions, and I do this with every single coaching client on every single session, the first thing we cover is what are some of your latest wins? Because no, I want to set the tone
Nice.
for the day. I want to set the tone for the call, and I want to reiterate and emphasize we are experiencing wins after wins after wins each and every day, but sometimes we don't even realize it.
Yes.
We get so blinded, but because of all the negative things that are happening. And studies show that humans have up to 60,000 thoughts per day, and 80% of our thoughts are negative, and 90% of our thoughts are repetitive. So it's no wonder why we regularly experience stress and worry and doubt and concern, anxiety and fear. But we know that fear is simply false evidence appearing real, and we're always going to find evidence in the things that we believe. So if I'm moving through life with a fixed mindset and I'm recognizing all of the negative things that are happening in my life, I'm looking at all the losses, but I'm not really focused on shifting my paradigm to a growth mindset and recognize, hey, I've got a lot of wins in my life, and I'm stacking those wins, but I'm not even paying attention to those wins. One of my favorite quotes from Oprah Winfrey, she says, "Be thankful for what you have, and you'll end up having more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you'll never ever have enough." And just the fact that we're here today, alive, is a win, because not every day is a guarantee. But any of us who are listening or watching this call, none of us know what it's like to not wake up the next day. So we unintentionally, inadvertently take these days, these new days for granted. But today's a new day, and we have an opportunity today to make an impact today, to make a difference in the lives of those around us. So this is your first win. The fact that you woke up is your first win. Now to start stacking those wins for the rest of the day.
Amazing, Josh. I love those quotes, and I got to use some of the stuff that you've told me. Got some post ideas.
Here you go.
Josh, you mentioned something great, and I noticed this even in myself. A lot of people do this. The overshadow of, like you said, all these wins that you have, but the one negative thing will overshadow all the wins.
Yeah.
I wanna take that and put it in the leadership world, right? And I'm sure you noticed this, and you know what I'm gonna be talking about. When managers are managing the team's people, and I want people to pay attention to this and provide their feedback, because I'm sure they've experienced it, because again, I have in many, many situations. The team wins consistently. There is no recognition for the wins. The one mess up and the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
Reprimandation, you know, what are we doing? Why do we do this? Like, we focus too much on the negative without seeing, you know, 10 things. Again, that goes back to leading individuals as well. You don't recognize that individual for the 10 things that they did right. You focus on the one thing that they did wrong. And I've heard this from so many employees before, that look at all the good stuff I've done, and my manager only tells me about the one thing I did wrong.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
There's one of the great wins that I've had as a coach is when one of my clients had this, I witnessed him have this light bulb moment on a call when he recognized he was so focused on reprimand versus recognize. And we talk about how we want to recognize versus reprimand. And he told me, he said, man, I just realized all I do is focus on what they did wrong instead of what they did right. And
Yes.
so, and from that moment, he shifted his paradigm and began focusing on all the things his team was doing right, and not allowing the quote unquote wrong things they were doing to take control of his mind. And when he started recognizing what they're doing right, he started verbally recognizing them. He started verbally appreciating them. And this verbal appreciation for all of the wins they were stacking and getting constantly, man, all of a sudden the culture in his shop, it's a shop, automotive shop. The culture in his shop began to increase, began to elevate. I always say, well, and this isn't for me, this is from a pastor, Craig Rochelle. He says, when the leader gets better, everyone gets better. And so I stole that from him years ago. When the leader gets better, everyone gets better. And when my client began to get better in a sense of I'm going to recognize versus reprimand, his entire team started showing up differently. And here's why. When he starts showing up differently, they start showing up differently. And this is the importance of just showing up. As a leader, you're showing up for your people. Another quote of mine, I love quotes, but another quote of mine comes from Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget the way you made them feel. And the way that you show up for people prompts them to feel a certain kind of way. And when you start showing up differently than a lot of previous employers, they start showing up and recognizing, hey, I do believe in myself thanks to this leader. I'm feeling the influence of their leadership. I'm starting to believe that I can do this and more because of this person's leadership. All because I started to shift a paradigm and say, I'm going to recognize versus reprimand. And that was it. But it was a great win, and he's doing amazing to this day.
Awesome. And in the what you said about showing up, again, going back to this question, how do you hold yourself head high when no one believes in you? Show up every day.
That's right.
Show up for yourself every day.
It goes back to the inspiration versus motivation.
Yeah.
So many of us are waiting to get motivated and waiting for the right time and waiting to be ready and prepared to take action. But when we take action, motivation and confidence tend to follow. But the beauty of all this is that you don't have to stay motivated to still take action. If you're disciplined because you recognize what's coming from within, discipline's going to trump that motivation. And so even on the mornings that you don't want to get up, you don't want to go work on yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially, you don't want to level up in these areas because you're not feeling motivated, the discipline that you have because of the higher calling that you have is going to prompt you to take action.
Awesome. You use the word discipline, Josh. So I'm going to go back to one of the questions that we talked about. How do you grow in leadership? How important is discipline in growth?
Rob, so I'm gonna flip this on you because I know you're a very disciplined person. I want you to answer that question. So how do you stay disciplined in your growth? Because you are amazing at staying disciplined. So let's hear from you.
For me, again, discipline is one of the hardest things to accomplish because you have to be able to control your thoughts and emotions almost consistently, right? It's about showing up, like you said, when you don't want to. For me, the way I built my discipline is through my mindset, was through the gym. So I've been working out for 27 years with a few months off here and there due to injuries, but now I don't take a day off. For me, I keep on working on my mindset and that discipline where I'm able to push myself. There's days we all feel shitty that we don't want to get up to go to the gym. I'll go. And I've trained myself to do it, whether 5:30 in the morning, 2:30 in the afternoon, 7:30 at night. I used to go to the gym 2 in the morning. So it's showing up when you know you have to, like when it's something you want to do, you got to show up.
Something you just mentioned, Rob, too, is that because you're talking about the mindset, but you're talking about working out, which I think is important because for a lot of us, and myself included, going to the gym and working out, or whether it's at the gym or anywhere, like if you're getting physically active,
Yes,
it's not just about leveling up physically, like because what that does for your mind can be even more so beneficial than the physical benefits.
absolutely.
Oh, go
Absolutely.
ahead.
Absolutely. For me, again, I always tell people I don't lift with my body when I'm at the gym. I lift with my mind, right?
Yes, same. Yeah.
And the discipline that I've built, Josh, I draw parallels from it. And I always tell people in my coaching sessions, I see them being disciplined in one thing, but they have no discipline in anything else. I'm like, how can you be you know how to be disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not committed to, you don't have a goal. You don't know where you want to go. Because I promise you, if you make that promise to yourself to say, hey, I want to achieve this, and you're committed to that goal, you're going to build that discipline through the consistency, through your commitment, and through your dedication, right? Last year, I quit drinking. And I used to drink when I started drinking when I was very young, like 15, 16 years old. I used to drink, and one day I'll share my story at actually one of the summits that I'm doing. I'm going to share my story. I used to drink before going to school. So I used to be sitting in class drunk, right? It was a band-aid solution for me. It was like I wanted to get away from the real world. So I don't want to get too deep into this topic, but the discipline is when I decide to quit drinking, I quit. Never touch it I haven't touched it since last February. I've been to
Wow.
all inclusives. I've been to places, social functions where it's right there in front of you. People will offer it to you, and people will always say, oh, they'll laugh at you, whatever. I've even lost friends because of it that I stopped drinking. But for me, it's right here.
Yeah.
If I tell myself I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I had a podcast with a friend of mine, and there's a lot of things when it comes to discipline. Again, I know we're talking about leadership, but in order to build in order to become a good leader, that discipline needs to be there. And there's various aspects of things, we talk about is the drinking, the drugs, the porn, all that stuff. If you discipline yourself to stay away from that crap, you build yourself and you build your mind not only to be a better human, but to be a better leader so people can look up to you and you can influence other people.
Yeah. So good. And I like that you referenced the parallels. There are, in my coaching that I do, I talk about 5 areas that we can level up our life and sharpen our axe in, which is spiritually, physically, emotionally, academically, and financially. And there's even a weekly tracker that I provide my clients on how they can level up each week in these 5 areas. Because to your point, you could be crushing it physically, working on yourself, going to the gym, but the other 4 areas are falling to the wayside. Financially, you're in a lot of debt, and your life is a mess, and emotionally, you're struggling to regulate your emotions, and emotional regulation is one of the greatest skills any of us can possess. Spiritually, you're so far away from whatever you believe in, and you're the only area of your life is that you're leveling up in is physically, but your entire life doesn't have balance and rhythm. And it's so important. And something I work with my clients on is not only finding balance in your life, but also finding rhythm in your life. And so I really appreciate the fact that you brought up the parallels. It's not just one thing, it's multiple things. And that's why we have to be intentional, disciplined, and focused on every aspect of our life.
That's right. And I find that a lot of people either they don't have goals, they don't have real goals, or they don't have big enough goals that really scare them to say, to put them in that uncomfortable state of growth, right? And again, this comes down to believing in yourself. Believe in yourself that you can achieve any goal. And I can be a testament to that. And I'm sure, Josh, you've got the same story,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I've had a lot of a lot of losses in my life and a lot of trial and error in my life, and that's a whole other topic. But yeah, trust me when I say, and and I still have a long way to go and a long way to grow. But I'll say this: I know that if I can do it, anyone can. Like
Yeah.
it's like I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm doing. If you knew me 15 years ago, it's almost it's like, well, hold on, you're a completely different person, and for a good way. So yeah, whole other topic.
That's right. And that's what I love about these live sessions is just it becomes a good conversation where people can learn a lot of things from people that have already gone through those experiences and are willing to share with them the journey as well, right? And the last thing, like this is something I love and I hear all the time, and I try to use it and I try to remind myself of this is what people think of you is none of your business.
Mm.
So just like
So what people think of you is none of your business. I like that.
yeah.
That's very good.
And so people can always be putting you down or saying crap about you, assuming things about you, judging you. This again, this goes back to believing in yourself. If you truly love and believe yourself, you're not going to care what people say or think about you.
And keep in mind, if someone is that active in trying to bring you down, there's a lot of insecurities and immaturity that they're personally dealing with. So
Yes.
I love that you said it's not only is it none of their business, but it's also none of your business.
Yeah.
You know what? If someone feels that way, that's none of my business. That's on you. That's on you to feel that way. So you can hate all you want. I'm staying focused. I'm doing my thing. So I like that you said that.
You'll never be able to control other people or their thoughts. So focus on yourself.
Yeah, good stuff.
Awesome. Next topic, Josh, is how do you grow staff? How do you train staff? Like, what is the how-tos of training staff?
Rob, this question could literally be 2 full sessions. I'm going to break it down as simple and as quickly as I can, just for the sake of time and efficiency. I think proper onboarding is one. So
Yes.
being able to effectively onboard someone. Anytime I bring on a new team member, what I want to do is I want to pre-board and then onboard. So a pre-boarding is even prior to your first day, I'm going to send you something, almost like a welcome package. Like, hey, Rob, thanks for joining the Limitless Leadership team. So excited that you're part of the family. I'm going to send maybe a couple books along your way. I'm going to send maybe a Limitless Leadership t-shirt, a mug. I'm going to say, man, we are so pumped that you're here. I'm going to have a handwritten card that I'll mail you, right? So I'm pre-boarding Rob onto the team. When Rob onboards onto the team, I'm going to give him at least a 6-week schedule of what his onboarding program or process is going to look like. I want to have previews and reviews. So weekly, I'm going to have a preview with Rob of what the week is going to look like. I'm going to have a review with Rob of what the week turned out to look like. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I think for a lot of us, I'm going back to what I shared earlier. We focus on giving directives. I'm going to tell Rob what to do. No, that's not the case. I hired Rob because Rob is amazing at what he does, and he's doing things different and potentially better than we are. So Rob's a part of the team to tell us what to do. So I'm going to ask Rob a lot of questions, but I want to make sure that I'm creating 2 things to provide 2 things. I'm creating safety and trust to provide clarity and direction. So when Rob gets on the team, I've pre-boarded, I've onboarded, preview, review, and now when you're going into the training portion, I like to use a MAWL method, MAWL. So if I'm teaching or training Rob on any particular process or procedure that our company utilizes, I'm going to do a MAWL MAWL method. I'm going to model for Rob what this looks like. The next phase is I'm going to assist Rob in doing the action together. The third phase is I'm going to watch Rob do it on his own, and then I'm going to launch. Ella's launched. Rob's going to launch. I'm going to say, you know what? You got this. I'm out of sight, out of mind. Of course, I'm still here for your support and guide, but I've modeled it for you. I've assisted with you. I've watched you do it. And now I'm launching you. I'm delegating that authority for you to go and take it to another level.
Amazing. Amazing. Josh, what are the challenges that you feel organizations are dealing with when it comes to, again, I love the pre-boarding and onboarding. why is this not happening in organizations right now, for at least for some organizations?
The three biggest challenges are communication, communication, and communication. So I'll say that communication is the biggest challenge that companies are facing. And when there's a breakdown in communication, voids get created and negativity tends to fill those voids. And when there's a lack of communication, the two things that we all need in any relationship, especially professionally, is lacking, which is clarity and direction. So if you think about this, I mean, think about if you're listening or watching, any job that you've ever left or lost, did you have both clarity and direction from those places of employment? It's very likely that you didn't. That's why you're no longer with them. And people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad leaders. And so this is an opportunity for leaders to create safety and trust, to provide clarity and direction. So in terms of why we're not properly onboarding, it's time. People say, I don't have time. I don't have the time to do it. I would say, respectfully, we're not making the time. We all have the same amount of time in our day. Yep. But what does your actual bandwidth look like? Look at, I mean, there's 1,440 minutes in an entire day. And studies show that we're on our little mini computers on our devices 3 to 4, 5 hours a day sometimes. You know, there's so many things that we're doing in a day-to-day span that we don't really realize how inefficient we are and how unproductive we are. I know I'm not the only one who can say that I've had a lot of busy days, but that doesn't necessarily mean I've had a productive day. Yes. I mean, you work all day and you're thinking, oh man, I was so busy today. Oh, what'd you do? What did I do today? It's like, what did I actually accomplish today? So to me, you know, going back to your initial question, the biggest challenge is communication. And I think the reason why that we don't do this is because of time. We find evidence in things that we believe, and I believe I don't have enough time, when in reality, I'm not making the time.
Absolutely, Josh. I love like the communication piece. I couldn't agree with you more. I think 95% of problems stem from communication or the lack of.
Yeah.
I would add something to that, just putting my PM hat on, is lack of planning. People don't plan. Like if you've got a new employee coming in,
yeah,
there's in a lot of cases they get thrown into the fire. There's no plan for them to even, like you said, that 6-week schedule that you have, they don't even have a plan for that.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, here, watch some videos and here's our policy, read the policy and you're good to go. That's not how it works. You gotta first of all, you gotta ease people in. You gotta make sure they understand, you know, the people around them, the work, what the work entails, what the company does. So there's a lot of, like, in my opinion, planning that goes, and communication is part of that plan, right? You communicate the plan. The other aspect is, when it comes to planning, is, so if you have an existing staff that you're trying to develop and grow, the training piece goes back to, where's your development plan for this individual?
Yeah.
Right? And rarely do we see a lot of, like, managers have development plans. And I always challenge leaders with this. You want your staff to grow, you complain about this person not, where's your development plan? Show me your development plan.
Yes, 100%.
And they got nothing to show for it.
And that's the direction. That's the lack of direction that we're getting. There's not much clarity.
Yep.
There's very little direction. People don't know what they don't know. And what's the phrase? If we fail to plan, then you're planning to fail.
Yep. Yep.
And so this is why preparation in anything that we do goes such a long way. I mean, you know, being able to manage our time more efficiently, whether it's a calendar-based system that you use, is compartmentalizing your day, utilizing lists, eliminating procrastination. There's so many things that we can do to work on our time management. And if we're adequately and efficiently operating throughout our day, we're likely prepared to make the time to make the onboarding schedule and the previews and the reviews, because we're prepared. And I feel like every time now I'm gonna hit you another quote from Chris Voss. He says, when the pressure is on, we don't rise to the occasion. We fall to our highest level of preparation. And if we stay prepared, we don't need to get ready if we stay ready, right? We're prepared, so we can make the time to do the necessary things to set that team member up for success. Because studies will show that it costs employers 6 to 9 months of a team member's salary to replace them.
Yes.
That's just from a financial perspective. That's not talking about from a time, an effort, a stress perspective. I mean, sleepless nights, because I, as a leader, am trying to keep my team members retained and happy, and I'm training them, I'm developing them, I'm doing all these things. If I lose a team member, it's going to financially cost me 6 to 9 months of that person's salary to replace them, but also the effort, the energy, all of this, it goes such a long way. That's why you have to make the time to adequately and efficiently set these people up for success.
Absolutely. And one of the things, the areas I want to talk to you is being present as a leader. But before we get in there, you said something, and I hear this quite a bit now, and I see these quotes quite a bit on LinkedIn and all the other social media platforms. People don't leave organizations, they leave managers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I agree with that, but I think I take it deeper. Why do you think that happens though?
Why are they leaving bad managers?
Why are they leaving why is there bad managers?
I think there's a lack of clarity and direction. And it's not necessarily from that manager. It might be from the top down. I think there's a lack of clarity and direction. There's a lack of vision, mission, and purpose. There might be core values. They might be plastered on the wall somewhere, but are they living out those core values? The 3 questions I ask my coaching clients is, where are you going? That's your vision.
Yes.
How are you getting there? That's your mission. And why are you doing it? That's your purpose. If I were to ask, if I went to any organization, any team, and asked, what is the mission towards the vision that's been cast, I would, most of the time, I would get a lot of different answers, because there's a lack of clarity and direction.
Yep. So I would turn that, and in reality, Josh, people are leaving organizations because the culture that organization creates allows to have those bad managers.
Yeah, that's good. That's true.
And it starts with the top, like you said. Culture is created at the top. So what they tolerate is these bad managers. And in a lot of cases, people can tell me, oh, but they don't know that these guys exist. They absolutely know that they exist. And if they don't know, they're not doing a good job with engagement, understanding, like listening to their people, because I'm sure people are complaining, right?
Yeah.
So the onus doesn't just fall on the manager, it falls back on the organization. What if that poor manager, and just to defend some of the managers, what if they've never received any training, coaching to become a leader? How can you fault them for that?
100%. And I agree with that. That's something, and that's where I say, like, it may not be this person, it might be from the top. And even at the very top, maybe this person doesn't know what they don't know. And so you want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt and recognize, look, I want to give grace. I want to be as understanding as possible. But my request is that I'm being heard. I think there's so many people who their voices have never been heard, their opinions have never mattered, their ideas have never been considered, and they don't feel heard, understood, acknowledged, cared for, respected, loved, all of those things. And we have an opportunity to change that. So if I'm gonna flip this back on you, Rob, and ask, let's say for the listener or the viewer of this session that we're doing, let's say they're in an organization where maybe they're not at the very top. They may not even be one of the higher level managers, but let's say they're on the team. How can they lead from a 360 standpoint? Because a lot of us feel like, well, as a leader, I need to have people, quote unquote, under me that I'm formally leading. But that's not the case. We can lead from a 360 standpoint. I can lead up, I can lead laterally, I can lead down. So for the viewer or listener of this session, how can I change what you're discussing? How can I change the culture that you're sharing?
Oh boy, changing a culture, Josh, that's like, that's like 3 sessions to talk about that.
Right. You're right.
And I can share a story briefly with everyone. So when I came to an organization that I worked for many years, when I first got in, been there about a year, 2 years, all I heard, Josh, was lots of complaining. People weren't being heard. And I love the job. I love the company itself and what they were doing. People loved working, but they were just so frustrated with what was going on. And listen, almost at like an entry level person. So I I don't know. I always say I'm built a little bit different than others. So I was just listening to everybody, and these were good people, by the way, Josh, right? These were not just, people were complaining just because they like complaining. These were hardworking people complaining because A, they didn't feel like they were being heard. Nothing was being implemented to help them out. And like we did have very poor management in some areas, and that goes back to the culture. So I said, let's build a team. Let's come together. Whoever that wants to see changes, let's build a team, and we'll take it right to the top. So I ended up, I still have the letter. I wrote a letter to the CEO, and I said, again, very properly and politely, and just being authentic, saying, look, we see issues as your employees with the culture here. And we want to help. We want to be a part of that change. How can we help? Oh boy, there was definitely a mix of people hating me for doing that, for overstepping my boundaries and all this stuff, and which I didn't, because if you're not going to do anything about it, and I want to work here and I want to help, how can I take this initiative on my own? And I don't think I was overstepping anything. I'm giving you valuable, and not only me, I've got a team of people that are willing to give you valuable feedback. So believe it or not, Josh, that CEO, who I still talk to, by the way, now, he set up a meeting with all his executives and invited us to talk about it. So half of the people dropped out because there was the fear of the reprimandation from their managers. But when we went and had a chat, he was actually willing to listen to us. But people got to understand, culture doesn't change overnight.
Yeah.
Right. And there's people sitting in his team that didn't like what we were doing, because in their eyes, everything is fine. There's no issues. But you're not down there to see what the issues are, and you're not asking anybody those questions.
Right.
So how would you know that? Plus, we're taking our time and our energy to providing you with this feedback. So going back to your question, how do you do it? Take initiative. Speak up. But be polite with what you do. Be professional with what you're doing, right? And voice your opinion. I always tell people on my team, you got a voice, use it. If you want to challenge me, do it professionally.
Right.
Because I don't know you might know some areas that I don't know. I learn from you just as much as you can learn from me. So you got to park that ego aside and say, hey, you can lead the people sitting beside you. You don't need a title to lead a leader. Having that title doesn't make you a leader. So take that initiative. If you want to make certain changes, have a champion with you, have a sponsor with you, and just do what you can. But I can tell you something, Josh, that in a big organization, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to change a culture overnight.
It's not going to happen overnight, but to your point, it's going to take some time, and it starts with one person. It
Yes.
starts with one person. That's it.
Yes.
Starts with one, and then it's again, they're gonna feel the influence, and it's
Yeah.
gonna carry on.
And there's a quote by Steve Jobs or Apple, if I'm not mistaken, that the people that think they're crazy enough to change the world are those who change the world. Something like
Yeah,
that.
it is. That's right. It's Steve Jobs. Yeah, that's good.
See, I like quotes, Josh, but I can't memorize them like you do.
This is a decades long of training that, and so
I
it's
love it.
repetition breeds retention, and that's yeah. I got a lot more in the bag.
I love it. And for those who are part of organizations and have that decision-making power, I would highly recommend that you guys reach out to Josh if you want to make some changes, bringing him to do some training, leadership training. He's done some great work and he's out there to help as well. So, feel free to reach out. We've hit the 1 hour mark. And for all the listeners out there again, so Josh and I are gonna hopefully do this as a series because there's 2.5 pages of questions and topics to go through. So again, appreciate everybody engaging and providing these topics and coming up and asking these questions. They're fantastic. We're here to help you guys out, and feel free to reach out. And hopefully the next one we'll try to have the Facebook Live, and we'll try to make that work. So again, I want to thank Josh for his time. I know it's 6:30 in the morning where you are, Josh. So thank you very much for waking up early and being a part of this. Again, and thanks for all those listening in and supporting us in our journeys.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, everyone.